Good morning, folks. Good afternoon. Good evening, depending on your time zone. This is Prakash Narayan. I'm on the ATEA Silicon Valley Executive Committee, and we are getting started on the Industry 4.0 webinar. I want to talk a little bit about ATEA before we get started. So ATEA is American Tamil Entrepreneurs Association. It's a business-focused, non-profit, non-political, non-partisan organization that fosters entrepreneurship among youth, women, and emerging business professionals. We've been around since 2015 when we had our first group of meetings, and then it grew into an organization, and now we have chapters in the Midwest, in Chicago, on the Northeast, and additional chapters are growing in Atlanta, in Dallas, and other areas. So it's basically a platform for exchanging business ideas, seeking mentorships, investments, making connections, and creating an atmosphere for entrepreneurial thinking among Americans of Tamil origin. So we're not necessarily restricting, quote unquote, for people in the of Tamil origin. We're looking at the diaspora. So I hope all of you are staying safe and healthy during this pandemic. What we thought we'll do, and we've been running this now for 3 or 4 weeks, is while people are quarantined and staying at home and locked down, we wanted to have this series of webinars that will allow people to engage and connect. So today's webinar is on Industry 4.0, and I'm really thrilled to have a distinguished speaker, Kanchana Raman. So Kanchana has been an entrepreneur for over 22 years. She founded Avion Systems in 1996 and has built an organization with extensive knowledge of the ICT industry, the telecommunications. In 2015, she formed Avion Networks, a joint venture with Tech Mahindra, and this aims to play a significant role in the deployment and management of current mobile networks and their planned transformation into the next generation cloud-enabled virtual and software-driven networks. So in some sense, she is an expert to talk to us about the evolution to Industry 4.0. In addition, she chairs several board positions. She is in the Telecom Industry Association. She's in TIE Atlanta. She's in the ATT Women's Forum, the Georgia Women's Business Council, and the list goes on. So I'm really thrilled to have Kanchana here. So Kanchana, I'm going to make you the presenter, and you can take it away. So let me know if you can start sharing.
Prakash, can you see my screen?
Not yet. Yes, I can see the screen now.
Okay, awesome. Good morning, good afternoon, and I don't know which time zones all of you are, but welcome to the webinar. And Prakash, thank you for the opportunity. I know you call me an expert, but I must say that, like everybody, I'm also learning, and I've used this time, I would say, productively to listen to several webinars myself, and have really learned a lot. I didn't expect me to spend that much time listening to everybody, but it's been definitely a great 4 weeks of quarantine. So once again, welcome, and thank you for the opportunity. I have been part of ATA for a couple of years now. I got invited to speak on a few panels, mostly women related. When you're a women entrepreneur, somehow everybody kind of boxes you into that, the female entrepreneur aspect. So I have represented ATA in a few of those. But I definitely consider myself a telecom enthusiast. I really love everything about telecommunications, both as a driver and a consumer. And I know Industry 4.0 is the current topic, and I'm gonna tie it back to telecom and many of the use cases. And sometimes we also think about telecommunications as a standalone, but it's really the lifeline for connecting just about everything. So with that, we'll get started. I'm planning to go for about 30 minutes, and then Prakash suggested we open it up for Q&A. And you can send your questions to him, and I think he would send it to me. I think that's how it works.
Well, sorry, just briefly. So for Q&A, there is a Q&A tab on the Zoho meeting application. So just pose your questions. We have muted the audience so we can moderate the questions. So type in your questions in the Q&A panel. I have some of my own questions, so I'll interweave them. And feel free. I mean, depending on the nature of the question, may interrupt you if it's on topical to what you're talking about right now. I may interrupt you, or will let you continue. So it's going to like it to be interactive, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Prakash. I would love for it to be interactive, because we can stay focused and answer the questions on on a slide or on a topic. So yeah, definitely let us make it interactive. I don't want to make it a monologue over here. So yeah, definitely happy to answer questions as we go through the presentation. So with that, let me get started. Most of you have probably seen this slide deck before. There is so much information today. I think we're really a fortunate generation that you could go on the internet and just learn so much about Industry 4.0. But I'm just going to give you my perspective, and again, tie it back to 5G, because that's the industry I have worked in for 22 years. I've been part of the 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. So that's pretty much everything I know, and I don't know if I would be able to change into a new industry at this point in life. But anyways, so Industry 1.0, for those of us that grew up with steam engines, especially if you're coming from India, I think, or the UK, you probably definitely remember the trains, the steam engine, and Industry 1.0 was powered by steam and coal. So all of those, things that evolved at that time was primarily weaving the assembly line that used the power from coal and steam. We progressed into Industry 2.0. So 2.0 is really electricity. So for those of us, that remember, I remember going to my grandparents' home, and when one day there was electricity, and this was when I was a child. So I think many places, many villages in India and around the world got electricity much later on. But definitely from an Industry 2.0, the assembly line that we see today, everything was powered by electricity, and it provided a lot of jobs for people. And we got into mass production. So I think Industry 2.0 is definitely a big step forward when we look at the Industry 3.0. So we built a lot out of Industry 2.0, and then we went into Industry 3.0. So Industry 3.0 is really where we are today. I mean, if you really look at it today, I think I would comfortably say that we are in Industry 2.0, what we're witnessing now, what we have grown up with. For example, the ERP, the computer, the internet. And then, of course, the present day transition is happening as we speak into Industry 4.0. And people are talking about connected devices, and again, harnessing the power of people and technology. So in a summary form, I would say Industry 3.0 was automation. Industry 4.0 is augmentation and amplification. So with that, I go to the next slide. So this is pretty much the framework for Industry 4.0. This is pretty much a global standard of the things that are going to evolve and make Industry 4.0 a reality. So let us talk about some of these things here. I'm sure people who have signed up are probably subject matter experts in each of this. So for example, smart sensors, one of the use cases is the current police department is able to use smart sensors where they're able to distinguish an object falling versus a gunshot. And they're able to deploy their forces about a minute or two after hearing that sensor. So I think it's just remarkable how these things are really impacting humanity and making life better for us. And of course, advanced robotics. I mean, all of us have probably heard about robotics and what they do for us, but we have probably not reimagined what robotics can do to any industry and how robotics and humans can play together. So there's a lot of things being talked about in terms of robotics, where you can think about, assembly line. Obviously, in the manufacturing, if we can get the robots to talk to each other without them, using the wireline technology, but moving towards wireless. So the robots can change the way they do work and do the jobs almost instantaneously, almost real time. So that is what 5G is going to bring into the factories and into the manufacturing. And robotics, people are also talking about remote surgeries. I'm sure in the last 4 or 5 weeks, many of us probably didn't pay attention to telehealth, at least in the United States. I know globally it is a very important tool, especially for remote villages in some of the developing countries where people are using telemedicine. But in the United States, I think we were really not into telemedicine until like 4 weeks ago, where I myself had called one of my doctors initially, I think when this whole thing started, and they were like, no, we're not doing it. And then 2 weeks later, I just followed up and they're like, yeah, we have an appointment for you. And, this is the first time my doctor really spoke to me for 45 minutes. I actually timed it. I was like, wow, I kind of like this. They have more time for us, in telemedicine than for us when we, go in to meet them. So robotic surgery, of course, it's going to be a long time before it becomes a reality and people can start trusting robotic arms versus doctors. But it is definitely something that is going to be part of Industry 4.0 and something that 5G is going to enable. So again, we are, let's look at cloud computing, for example. With their own data centers, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Amazon Cloud. I mean, again, that's pushing technology forward. And then you look at the location detection, right? So let me give you a simple use case. When you look at your Google Maps today, the map navigation, I mean, that is really detection. But I guess what has become smarter is the dynamic route optimization. So if you see, how they started interacting with us, because they are, calibrating almost real time, they're asking you, right? So the device is talking to the human and saying, hey, would you like to take this alternate route, which is like 10 minutes faster? So that is the dynamic route optimization. And those things are again enabled because of a strong communication network. And then you're, of course, looking at, augmented reality, which is, overlaying information on physical things. Like, for example, they're going to superimpose the map on the windshield. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but I think that's going to be pretty exciting. And, everybody's been talking about augmented reality in a lot of different ways, where you can entertain, the elderly in terms of giving them, a real world trip around any of the places they want to go. And I guess today, with the situation we are in, I guess all of us can use some of those, remote trips from where we are sitting. So definitely, I think technology will be more used more than and faster than what we had really thought we would. And of course, big data analytics, or we have talked about it. It's commonplace. It's been around, I would say, maybe from Industry 3.0 or even before. Basically scaling data for decision making, predicting, and again, it's being used widely for election results. So I think these are some of the use cases that Industry 4.0 is going to bring to bear.
So I think one of the questions, Kanchana, is the application of Industry 4.0. Yeah, that's right. The application of Industry 4.0, is it for these new emerging technologies like IoT and AI/ML, or can it apply to traditional industries like retail or banking or fintech?
Yeah. See, basically, what is Industry 4.0 is applying digital technology, right? I mean, digital technology, it starts off for manufacturing, but it really can be applied to any industry. For example, you're basically transforming any industry into digital technologies. So, for example, when you look at fintech, mobile devices have become a new norm for banking activities. So, banking, insurance, mortgage, stocks are all thriving due to digital innovation. And one of the nicer things I read is that micro loans in Bangladesh have opened up a new era of financial empowerment for disadvantaged people in rural areas. So yeah, it is. I mean, anybody that is willing to step outside their comfort zone and disrupt themselves by using digital technologies, I would say yes. Industry 4.0 is applicable for you. And again, do you shy away from it? If you shy away from it, obviously we'll be left behind the race. And I think many of us have experienced that, how fast technology changes on us. For example, from the telecom industry where I come, people always say next generation is like 5 years. Whereas what we saw is the next generation right now could be few months, right? The next generation of anything coming up, or if you look at a version 1 to a version 2, the change in pace is so rapid that there is really no time lapse between one generation to the next.
So in some sense, the current COVID-19 situation, you're saying, is accelerating the adoption of Industry 4.0?
At least for me, yeah. I never thought I'd be in telemedicine, talking to my doctor. No, I think absolutely. I think there are, the last 4 weeks has changed everything for us, right? How we think, how we work, and how we trust our teammates, right, to work remote and do things for us, and how the industry has been moving on seamlessly, right? For many of us, at least, I mean, I'm still putting in 10 to 12 hours of work. For example, our customers who are going through M&A, I mean, the customer is also working. So if you look at your ecosystem, everybody has been working hard. So I think we're trying to do the best with the current situation and rapidly adopting to change, right? For example, I don't think we were, using Zoom or, using video as much as look at each other and, and again, pause, to recognize the human element where we are like, hey, how are you doing? Many times we are so, wired in a given day, we hardly pause to ask how people are doing. But I think this has made all of us pause and look at the human element as well. So I think these video conferences that we're having with our colleagues, many times you would meet somebody who's, in a different state, maybe once a quarter, but now you're meeting them on a weekly basis, or if you want, on a daily basis. So I think definitely the adaptation, the human power to adapt to change, I think is definitely come to bear in this situation.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah.
All right. So can I continue, Prakash?
Please do.
All right. Thank you. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the network. How the telecom network has become heterogeneous. So when you right now everything about 5G is reduced latency. So I want to, just talk to you about, what is network latency, right? I think it's a very important concept to understand the difference between 4G and 5G. 4G is what we have today, right? It is best effort network. 5G is guaranteed. I mean, when we say this is going to happen in 5G, it is going to happen. So when you look at a 5G and the network latency, it is the time required for a set of data to travel between 2 points. It is different from the previous generation of cellular technology because the short amount of time it'll take. So for example, let us say 1 to 2 milliseconds is what the current latency is, right? I mean, there is still, the jury is out on, is it 1 to 2 milliseconds, or is it slow, a lot lesser than that? So I won't go into those details. So what is a millisecond? It is a thousandth of a second. The time, so from a sports angle, from the time a baseball is in contact with a bat. So that is how fast the 5G network is going to work for us. So as a consumer, you may not feel the difference. It'll be pretty seamless. You're going to be excited about high data speeds, whether you're playing games or, whatever you use your device for. But I guess as humanity, there's going to be some amazing impacts, and we will go into some of those. So everything is about managing data bandwidth. That's what you really need for 5G, along with low latency. So we can deliver the necessary technologies. So we are working on a heterogeneous network. So if you look at a network, you're all familiar with the towers, right? That's the macro network. But then we are also now moving to densify the network. So there is absolutely no gaps in any kind of communication, whether it's data, voice. I mean, for those of us who have used the cell phone in the last 15 years, or even 10 years, you're driving somewhere. Oh, it's a dead zone. The phone, the voice phone dropped, or I'm skiing and I don't have connection. I mean, those things are all going to go away, right? Which probably has already gone away. So one of the ways we achieve that is basically by densifying the network. So we do small cells, we do outdoor DAS, distributed antenna systems, indoor DAS. And then, of course, the core network, you have the enterprise, and then you have the metro cell, the pico cell, and of course, for everything you need a good mobile backhaul. So RRH is the remote radio heads. So this is really how the network is functioning today. Is so small cell is we use street furniture to put an antenna. So for example, just about everywhere you're working, driving. You're going to be seeing different infrastructures, but they're going to look so fancy and blend so beautifully into the environment that you're really not going to know. It's not going to look like a traditional macro tower. So with that, I just wanted to, go into this next slide, which is the top 10 use cases from the 5G network. So let us see connected automotives. So I was listening to a couple of years ago about the automotive industry getting into connected cars or even intelligent cars, putting intelligence into the car. So this presenter was saying cars are like weapons on the street, and they kill more people than guns. So if you can empower your car to become smart, and if you can empower everybody else's car to become smart, so you can be safe, I guess that the technology that's going to enable it eventually is going to be 5G. So for example, to almost make real-time corrections, while you're driving. So right now, different things are being used. They're using, cameras, GPS systems, computer vision, laser lights, radar, odometer reading, and many more sensors are used to control the car's advanced control systems and also analyze data. But again, everything has to run on a strong network. And that is when, driverless cars, self-driving cars, connected cars, the entire ecosystem can be activated. So for that, you need low latency. So now you know where the latency comes into play, right? You're looking at, the course correction has to be as sharp as the human brain. So let us never discount the human aspect of it, or the power of the human being, right? So everything we're trying to automate today is trying to match what the human can do, because we can probably make that correction in that millisecond. So right now they're trying to use technology to make those corrections for connected cars. So you see how important it is when you're driving, your car has to make that correction in 1 to 2 milliseconds. And so, of course, I spoke about wireless e-health, which is basically what they're saying is that for robotic surgeries to happen in a remote village, which of course is going to take a few years, because like I said, the humans have to start trusting a robotic arm. So basically you buy a robotic arm and say you put it in some village, that's not on the map right now. And the person there needs surgery. So somebody from Atlanta, like say Emory Hospital, I graduated from Emory, so I think I have the liberty to use the name, can direct the surgery through the robotic arm and through augmented reality, through those lenses, and make, and perform the surgery, basically perform the surgery. So again, when you think about it, again, you need the latency, right? You need zero latency for something like this to happen. So I think those are some of the use cases I just wanted to talk about. I mean, if there's any other interest in anything else, we can always come back to it. Again, Industry 4.0, people are talking about, explosion of possibilities, right? When you look at, explosion of possibilities, let me give you something from 4G, right? When 4G came to life, we did not know the different applications that are going to come, that are going to, spring off the 4G network. So for example, Uber. We didn't have Uber, right? When we moved from 3G to 4G. But that was an application that, an entrepreneur thought about it, Travis, and he came up with Uber. Similarly, Airbnb, right? Things that kind of disrupted our industry in 4G. Similarly, in 5G, we have no idea what are the different things that are going to come to bear. So when you look at the next 3 to 5 years, the number of applications, the number of innovations that are going to come out of 5G would be something that we cannot comprehend today. So let's kind of, just wait and see what is going to, come in the future. So I think this is, again, just to kind of talk about, the 5G experience. We're going to have fiber-like speeds, uniform experience, low latency, a lower cost per bit. And I think I have the slicing of the data. Let me see where that is. Yeah. So one of the things about 5G is basically, you can slice the data. So for example, in 4G, it was a uniform usage, right, across the board. Say in 5G, somebody decides to invest. For example, you have enthusiasts in the self-driving cars, and they say, you know what, we want to get a slice of the 5G data. I mean, they can use it, right? Or you have somebody in healthcare that says, okay, I want to use the 5G data. I mean, that can be sliced and given to them for usage. So that is the beauty about 5G, is it's going to come into our life so seamlessly through different industries that we would not even know the impact it's having on us as users. But obviously, when you see the transformation happening around you in the ecosystem, you would know that 5G is in play. So here are some of the things that network slicing can be used. So this is the beautiful thing, I think, about the Industry 4.0 is the human-to-human interaction, right? I mean, if you really look at how we have been interacting over the years, it's, communicating human to human. But then I think we also, now what we are looking at is human to machine. So that part of it is what really enables use cases. For example, human to machine, you can look at healthcare monitoring elderly care. For example, any kind of wearables, right? I mean, there are people coming up with, wearables, people are coming up with smart canes, necklaces that can monitor everything about a patient or the elderly remotely. So again, that is the human to machine communications. And then again, ambulances can have sensors and that can connect to the wearables. So there's just so much more technology that can be used from a human to machine communication. And lastly, I think Industry 4.0, it's all about the machine to machine communication, where you're going to have robots talking to each other. So for example, in a factory, robots should be able to communicate efficiently with each other, should be able to change the jobs seamlessly, and again, be able to use technology to reduce cycle time and increase production. So I think, again, like I said, let us not forget the human in all this, because the most important person benefiting from all of these technologies is really is the human. So let us then go into the effects of the industrial revolution, right? So some of the lessons learned, which we are trying to improve in Industry 4.0.
So there is a question in the previous slide. So essentially, it seems as though the risks in adopting Industry 4.0 are the new. I mean, the traditional risks that we have, even in Industry 3.0, which is privacy and security. It looks like they would transcend into Industry 4.0. Are there additional mitigations for privacy and security in Industry 4.0?
Yeah, security is always a concern, right? Even today, I mean, if you heard, it's you're talking about Zoom calls, right? Then there was suddenly a
bombing.
Yeah, everybody talking about it getting hacked again. It's a big concern and it's not fully understood. If you really look at it, it back in the day, everything was inside, right? And now information is distributed in the cloud and the edge. So there are more places we are distributing information in. So obviously the security is a concern. I remember many years ago when we had the Wi-Fi, right? We were sitting in the airports. People would be like, oh my God, somebody else can look at your data, what you're sending over the Wi-Fi. There was a security concern. But I feel bullish that we will work through it, right? I mean, there is work constantly being done. But again, it is not fully understood in terms of how it's going to happen. For example, when you look at the connected cars, right, or self-driving cars, I mean, the last thing you want is somebody to hack that software, right? I mean, thoughts like that can give you sleepless nights. So I guess definitely security is of huge concern, and it is evolving every day to every application, to every use case. So I would say that the more we have security around security, I think it will give the consumer more confidence to use, the different, things that are available out there.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Prakash. So again, I just wanted to talk about some of the lessons learned. So when you look at some of the over the 2,000 years of economic history, you would see that some of the other countries outside United States, especially India, had a huge power coming up, right? But over time, those things have been lost. So if you look at it now, it's the United States is the one that has the maximum GDP. So one of the things, of the Industrial Revolution about urbanization was that, for example, the weavers were weaving in different small cities, small villages. And then when urbanization happened, everybody started moving to the center of the textile industry. And what had happened because of that is people who the action started being centralized around the major metros, the major cities. So there are currently 33 mega cities in the world, and a mega city is basically a population over 10 million. And there will be about 6 more that will be joined by 2030 and include cities like Chicago and Chennai. So for example, I would not say it is a big thing to become a mega city, but I think what is really important is mega city is really being described by value creation, right? So Chennai would be the most dense of all the new mega cities by 2030. And however, the economy will be about 50 billion GDP, which is just 1/4 of the size of Chicago's GDP. So it is extremely important while you become a mega city to accelerate value creation and improve the quality for everybody, for all people involved. So when you look at this, in Industry 1.0, there was child labor in the coal mine, right? But that's not something we want to do in Industry 4.0. So we don't want to leave anybody behind in this new Industry 4.0. So again, this is something I just touched on. So we let us say Industry 4.0 is going to think beyond humans, and human to machine communication is going to be extremely important. How humans and machines work together. How do we make machines make it user adaptable and for them to work with us. So, human to machine, we're talking about augmentation to amplification. Basically, it is going to help amplify the human potential. And, we talk about reimagining the future of work. And again, keeping the humans in mind, we want to make it purposeful, meaningful, and rewarding. And this is my last slide. So I know I've taken maybe 8 minutes more. During this time, I've been an entrepreneur for 22 years, and I've spent a lot of time in this last 4 weeks mentoring many startup companies. And it is amazing the ideas that they have come up because of this pandemic. So there's really two schools of thoughts, right? One that is kind of trying to keep the status quo going, and the other that is trying to disrupt the industry and say, let me bring in these things to help, right? To help the pandemic. See what are the businesses that come out of this time period. So I think entrepreneurship, there is room for entrepreneurship at all times. Whether it is the economy is good, the economy is bad, it really doesn't matter. The situation is good or bad. There's always time for it. And like I said, I've been enjoying seeing all the different ideas that are just coming out of the young millennials. So I work with Emory University. I work with several high school entrepreneurs, university entrepreneurs, and of course, many of the startup entrepreneurs as well. And I have never had a rush of ideas like I have had in the last 4 weeks. People reaching, wanting to discuss next steps and looking for mentoring. So with that, I want to, say thank you for giving me this opportunity. Hopefully you saw Industry 4.0 from my angle. And like I said, there's plenty of information out there. And if anybody is interested in, fine tuning it for your own industry, definitely go forward with it. And, be open to getting disrupted, because if you don't disrupt yourself, somebody else will come and do it for us. And I think the famous thing people always talk about is Blockbuster. They say Netflix was actually talking to Blockbuster, wanting to run their online portal, but Blockbuster was not interested or did not see the value. And then today we know where the two companies are. So I think with that, I'll just leave everybody with that thought that there are opportunities every day. There are opportunities in everything we do, and best wishes.
So there's still a bunch of questions. I hope you still have a couple more minutes.
Sure. So, yeah, you said we could go for an hour, so we have about 20 minutes. So I just wanted to open it up. Yeah.
Perfect. So one question, in fact, on this opportunity that you talked about, right? So the question has two flavors. One is so uh, COVID specific opportunities, right? So after 9/11, there were changes in the industry on enabling new opportunities. So what are among the people that have an entrepreneurial bent in the audience here? What are the opportunities that you perceive around COVID and or COVID post COVID world?
So so the question was, what are the opportunities?
But yeah, that people in as this there's a new world now. So in this post-COVID world, where do you see the opportunities that people can start investing their time in?
Well, I think, when you look at all of us, right, Prakash, so most of us are subject matter experts in a certain industry, right? And sometimes it's very difficult to not know a new industry and go into it. But if you see a used case in your industry that can help empower the current situation, right? In terms of betterment of the situation, there are people who are starting, online platforms for different things, whether it is, you know, um, like for example, wearables and better service in terms of education, right? What I'm seeing right now is the education industry has definitely taken a big jolt, right? We have closed schools, we have closed universities, and so one of the things people are thinking is how to enhance that education. How do you still be able to provide the same amount of connectivity and learning like you would in a real classroom environment. And
Mhm.
again, and the ability to focus. And the second thing, I think, also, remote learning, right? I mean, there are right now, when you look at it, there are trainers who the only way you would train with them is if you go meet them in person. And many of them were literally having no revenue at all, but they all have come up with this new app to say, you know what, I can train you remotely. So I guess we're also learning, yoga classes and all kinds of things, digital yoga, and just everything to help you. So these are things that we never thought we would do digitally, right? I mean, many times you think, oh, I want to be there in a yoga class, I want to be there with my trainer so he can tell me what to do. So there is just so much innovation everywhere. And again, in the restaurant food delivery industry, what are the so people are doing different metrics for price analysis, right? And what are the restaurants that are open, what are the best prices that are there, who are giving the discounts. I mean, these are things that are just popping up every day. There are algorithms being prepared by people every day. And it is, and again, how are they going to reach the audience? There is a target audience, right? I mean, people who are doing food services, they go after certain certain group of targeted, whether it's hospital systems. So there's just so much going on every day. I have, like I said, in the last 30 days, I've seen a lot of it, mostly trends in education and healthcare and food delivery. I mean, these seem to be the more prevalent ones. And of course, remote voice assistance. So a lot of the call center help. Those things are also being talked about.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, even as you were talking, I started just having visions of uh, remote DIY plumbing. Um,
DIY, what's Prakash? What was it? DIY?
DIY plumbing, right? Uh, So I think it's as you said correctly. It's the limit of your imagination as to what opportunities you can make out of the current situation. So
Yeah.
the other question with the same in terms of opportunities is focused on the topic, which is Industry 4.0. So where do you see, or what do you see are uh, the gaps that exist today that audience members can explore and create solutions?
So as things are emerging, right, and as you know, 5G has to fully materialize, we would see more opportunities that are going to be emerging, right? So, for example, for example, you think about industry 4.0 in terms of what it can disrupt, right? And so right now we are looking at human to machine communication, but we have really not felt the full impact of the machine to machine communication and how can they empower us, right? How can the machine to machine communication evolve our thinking, the human thinking? So I think those are the things that are going to be coming up, as we go through this, and it's that the possibilities are enormous, and I don't think we have really fully realized it. Like I said, it will be another 3 to 5 years, and the kind of things that we would see coming up is going to definitely be a game changer. So I think this is probably reimagining the future of work. So, people are saying how we're going to be working with robotics, robots going forward, and how they're really going to help us better our quality of life, both at work and home. And again, when you look at the connected devices, the Internet of Things, we have just started. We say we have 20 billion devices connected, but when you really look at it, it's going to be 40, 50 billion devices connected, and it's going to be so seamless. It'll just take over how we work and play every day.
Awesome. So, for folks, keep sending your questions in. There's one more question here on. They're saying that providers like AT&T and Verizon are saying that they already have 5G, but there are still blind spots. So, what will the 5G reliability networks, for example, Elon Musk's Starlink?
So 5G is actually evolving right now, Prakash. So what we are really experiencing is a strong 4G network. And there are some areas where there is 5G being launched, right? In the last year, you would see different press releases coming out. But has it been fully exploited and used for the consumer? We don't know. So what you don't know is, again, like I said, the network slicing. So what are they using the 5G for today? Like say for example, they have launched it in San Francisco, right? Is it being used for healthcare? Is it being used for connected cars? We don't know, right? But definitely the 5G is coming for if you have to the device later this year. So you as a consumer, we will be able to realize the full potential of 5G maybe in 2020. And again, people are asking this question next, which I'll probably just answer, is how is this COVID-19 going to impact 2020 and 2021? So I'm going to just tell you what I've heard in a webinar yesterday. And what they said was, as fast as COVID-19 has brought the curve down, it's going to rise as fast as that, the later half of 2020. And 2021 looks really, really bullish. And it's going to be one of the, in terms of uptick in technology, it's going to be a glorious year. So I thought that was pretty promising. So I think we are just going through this little phase over here and we would emerge stronger.
And you've been really keeping this at a industry level rather than talking about your company. Maybe you can spend a little bit and tell us what your company is doing in the Industry 4.0 space.
Yeah, sure. So, everything we do today, we are, playing in the 5G space. So we are, working on densification, like I said in my previous slide. Yeah. So, no, yeah. So this is what our company does. So we, work on densification of the network. Make sure there's enough data capacity, and again, the network is seamless, and we are able to, work on connected devices, connect, and again work on the new thing is this edge computing. So many times people are talking about keeping the intelligence within the enterprise. So that's something we have also been working on. So yeah, so we work on everything 5G deployment. I'm at the heart of the action, and I have, like I said, really enjoyed being part of 2G to 5G. As a consumer and driver, we also launched the network in India in 2003. So I remember being there on the first day the network was launched, and everybody was able to have a flip phone. And those of us that were raised over there, we know how hard it was to get a landline, and suddenly you're able to have a phone, and also see how it empowered, the remotest villages in India, and direct trade, and the impact it had on everybody that deserved a better life. So I feel purposeful in everything I do, and I'm thankful for the opportunities. I guess my customers, the big operators, have given us to work in these technologies.
That's awesome. So there's another question on the quote unquote dangers of 5G, especially the health related, or we've been hearing about harmful to children. So do you have some insights on that?
So the 5G network being harmful to children?
Again, there have been different theories that have come out. As this one that I've read, where are there any health-related dangers from the deployment of 5G in terms of the electromagnetic radiation, etc.?
No, not true. So there has been enough research done on that. I know that even in the 3G days, these kind of noise was always there. But there has been enough research done, and there is absolutely no truth to it, and there's no scientific proof that the wireless is going to be harming any humans.
Awesome. So those are the questions we have. Thank you very much again. This has been very informative, and I hope people are able to derive as much from it as I did.
Yeah, no, thanks. And I think we did really well on time, so we're well within our hour.
Yeah.
And thank you, Prakash, for everything ATA doing for us, and all the great webinars you've been arranging. And best wishes.
Thank you. Take care. Bye, folks.
Thanks.